I moved to Switzerland in the year 2006 for a very particular reason, because the tax situation in Germany was and still is not really good. And I developed this company, I founded this company, and wanted to go global with this company, and I realized if I want to do it without the help of the bank, I need to save money. So let's go to a country where you pay lower taxes, because you can keep that money and reinvest it in the company, and that's what I did. And that was more or less why I ended up in Switzerland in the first place. But of course, Switzerland is also a very beautiful country. It looks almost the same like where I was born and raised, in the Alps. And it's actually, my home now in Switzerland is only 2.5 hours away by car from my Bavarian home. So it's very close, you know. You know how it is in Europe. You can drive through 10 countries in one day. That's not a joke. If you are interested, I'll let you know the route for that. So if you want to make 10 countries in Europe in one day, I know how to do it. Without breaking the rules. So you don't need to be a Formula 1 car driver, you can do it just, you know. It's possible. My journey, why I'm here today and why I'm doing this since almost 30 years is, they mentioned it, I got diagnosed with a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma at the tender age of 26 years old. I was into sports, and obviously not a nice message at that age. And I went through the whole classical medical practice, 2 surgeries, 1 full stage of chemotherapy. I lost 40 kilos within that 6 months. I was not the same person than before. And comparing to many others, sharing the same story that I have, I'm not alone with this. We have millions and millions of people suffering from more or less the same thing nowadays and today. But I was always a guy who was questioning things, and a guy who wants to know what's going on whenever something happened to me. And so it was with this cancer. Instead of just try to forget about it, I went into that. I started investigating what is this cancer all about. Why did I get it? Which is unanswered till today. I don't know, frankly speaking. But at least, I wanted to know more about it. And most importantly, I also wanted to find ideas and tools how I could become proactive to create a situation that this cancer doesn't appear anymore. Because the biggest fear of every cancer patient is, whenever you went through the whole thing, that it will not come back again, And I'm 57 today, so it's 30 years ago when I had my diagnosis and my treatments. The cancer didn't come back, but the fear is still there. And it's easier for me now to speak about all that. But believe me, whenever I feel some pains and aches, or I'm in a mood which I cannot track to any cause, this fear is coming back, which is a normal reaction of human beings, because we have this huge brain and we constantly think about things. But I can handle it nowadays. But just to share with you, it will probably accompany me till the end of my last breath. Because once you have it, it's just always there. Maybe it's also a good thing, because you maybe become a little bit more alerted. And in combination with collecting good information, collecting a great amount of education, it's easier for you to make the right decisions. And I think a lot of people suffering from chronic diseases nowadays, they suffer from it, not because they want to suffer, but because they lack of education. And they lack of the consequences, what they do when they do something. At all ends. Diet. People just eat, the wrong thing constantly on a daily basis. They drink the wrong thing. I know that water is in alcohol, but You can also skip the alcohol and get the water out, you know. And, you know, if you constantly do things wrong with your body, you will deserve a chronic disease, and you will earn it. You're going to earn it. A chronic disease has to be earned. You don't get it overnight. You know, and most people earn it when they do the wrong thing on a daily basis. And turning this around, if you do things right on a constant basis, you know, you are gifted with health. And I think this must be the approach of all of us, because our life has has an end, you know. It's not infinitely going. And 50 years ago, it was 65 to 70. Now we're increasing the life expectancy. Doesn't mean that these people are more healthy. We just find more ideas how to extend the time frame until the last breath. But like I said, a lot of people, they suffer the last 20, 30 years of their life having heavily chronic diseases, and just maintain these diseases without having any fun and purpose in life. And to me, this is unacceptable. You know, and I hope to you too. And I think so, because otherwise you would not be here and invest your Holy Sunday to listen to that guy from Bavaria. Yeah. So I really appreciate that you came today, and I think we have a lot to share today. I hope I can give you some new ideas about how to stay healthy, how to stay healthy and become happily old with this. I don't like aging, frankly speaking. Everybody always says, "Well, I think you are so experienced." I said, "Yeah, but no, I love life, and with every year you become older, you know it's gonna be closer to the end. This is what it is. That's the truth, you know." And I'm pretty conscious about that, and that's why I, together with Veronica, we try to make the best out of every day, you know, to just invest every minute in something good, whether it's the business, whether it's the private life, whether it's how we're going to deal with each other, how we're going to talk to each other, whether how I talk to you guys, to our representatives, to our clients all over the world, you know. I think we need to appreciate every minute, because we have to leave this planet, you know. And the last shirt has no pocket. You know, never forget this. So with this in mind, let's get into PEMF, because when I got diagnosed, I discovered this technology because of my chemotherapy. I started suffering from insomnia. And it was at that time when the first PEMF units appeared on the market. And at that time, scientists found out that PEMF works pretty good for people who are suffering from sleep problems. So when you expose them through an applicator with this kind of electromagnetic radiation, they started sleeping better, which is a blessing for a lot of people, because sleep is important for our body, because that's the time of the day or night where we regenerate, when our entire organism is on reset mode, you know, recharging everything, balancing all the systems and stuff like that, you know, giving the cells some peace and freedom to collect themselves again, and so on and so on. So sleep is more or less the number one foundation of a healthy lifestyle. And I bought a system at that time, and it kicked in for me. It took a while. I remember it was 4 to 6 weeks or something like that, but I started sleeping better. And then, of course, I felt during the days when I was awake that my energy came back, because I got back into this rhythm. You know, the night was for rest. The morning, you know, after a good sleep, you get up, you have a lot of energy again. You feel that your body is functioning on all levels. And of course, it was a process. It went slowly, but I felt it, you know. And when you ever were so low on energy level, like I was after my cancer treatments, because I can clearly share with you, I had days during that time where I didn't want to stay alive anymore, because I just didn't feel my body anymore. Made no sense. For what? You know? And then when you slowly get back this energy, and when you slowly feel that your body is capable of doing miracles by itself, just by giving it the right kick, the right language, the right message, the right energy. This is what I experienced, and that was a very profound experience for me. I can tell you. And based on that, I got really intrigued about this PEMF thing. I started asking questions. I started doing research, which was a pain in the ass at that time because Google was not invented. Yeah. You had to read books. You had to go to lectures. You had to go to conventions, to fairs, to wherever, you know. But you know, that's me. You know, I was just driven by this idea that this is cool stuff, and this is what people who suffer from cancer should have in their hands. That was at that time my idea, because it helped me. You know, and nothing beats a personal experience. Nothing. You know, no study in the world, even if it's placebo-controlled, double-blind, whatsoever, beats a personal experience. And then, you know, I made a decision to go away from sports. I realized that it's too boring for me and too one-sided. I don't know, it was just not sexy enough for spending another 40, 50 years in my life, you know. And I went into that business. And I started selling the devices for the company at that time I bought it from, which I stopped very quickly because it was not professionally done. The system looked pretty shady. It costed a lot of money. So I thought I could do that better. I thought so. And then I realized, oh, I'm not an engineer. And this looks like complicated. But you know how it is when you're on a mission, you find the right people. Because you go for that, you know? It's like if you walk like this through the city, it takes only 20 minutes and 10 people will follow you like this. You know? But if you follow you like this and you're open to everything, you attract people. They ask questions, you know? And this is how I ended up. At the beginning I always thought incidentally, but it was not an incident because I was on this mission. I was seeking for the people to help me to get this going. And I found them. I found an engineer. By the way, the engineering team from that time, 26 years ago, is still working with me. Wow. And and it's still doing the upgrades and the updates and the ideas, you know. And then I found the manufacturing company for the electronics 26 years ago. And you know what? They are still working with us. And then I found the company doing the applicators, which is a combination of you will not believe it, of extremely skilled women from Hong Kong, because they're suing these applicators. And this is a very special technology to do that. You need skills, you know. And they, you know what? They're still doing it for us. It's the same person, you know. So the entire core team I started this business with 26 years ago is still with us. And I could never imagine that something like this happens, you know. But that's a cool record, and I'm very proud of this. And it makes life easier when you come out with something new, because you always talk to people who understand your language already. And after this long period of time, we have our own country offices. We have 2 offices in Asia, one in Singapore, one in Hong Kong. We have one in Oakville in Canada, taking care also of you guys. We have one in Florida, taking care of the US market. And we have 2 in Europe, one in Switzerland and one in Germany. And I don't know what's coming next. We will see, you know. But we have a lot of work, and obviously the business changed a lot. And I don't want to go too deep into detail because there is so much going on, but that there is still this topic on this slide, which is called PEMF. PEMF is a shortcut for past electromagnetic fields. And the IMRS prime, which we have, which a lot of people have in possession now, it's the 10th generation of our systems, which I developed together with my team. And of course, more to come in the future. There is, there is a lot of, let's say it in different words. PEMF is evolving together with us. And I never realized that the first 10, 15 years. That's why I always use the same lecture. Because, as you know, electromagnetic energy, as it is, doesn't change. The Schumann resonance is the Schumann resonance. The electromagnetic field of frequency of the Earth magnetic field is 11.75 to 11.78 Hertz, and it didn't change. So I always thought, because all these numbers don't change, the modality per se doesn't change, but it's not true. A lot changed. And what changed the most is we have a lot of competition in the market claiming that they have PEMF units, which in fact they don't. And I thought I'm gonna change my lecture because nowadays when I speak to you guys, you have a much better understanding already about PEMF than maybe 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And if not, no worries, because you will learn not only how PEMF works, but you will also learn, and this becomes more and more important, why does it work? And what properties a PEMF device has to deliver, or has to be delivered to you in order to make or to perform what it has to perform. And I think this is the next level I would like to dive into together with you with these lectures. And that's why I turned this from German, putting the cart before the horse. So today I'm not starting with this history about PEMF. I'm starting about what PEMF actually does to your body. And you know how people are programmed. Always the same question. I have this or this condition. Does PEMF help for this? I have arthritis. Is PEMF good for this? I have cancer. Can I use PEMF? I have this and that. I have pain. I have this and that. And of course, when people ask these questions, they expect a yes, right? Which is, by the way, illegal, because we learned in the modern world and in the controlled compliance world that whenever you have a modality or a device, and you have to design this device or this modality for a purpose, for a defined purpose. So as there is a medical device which is targeted to, for example, to keep your heart running. Pacemaker. So there is a pacemaker has a very, very clear intent of use. And nobody would ever ask, does this pacemaker also help me with my pain? Because we know that a pacemaker is defined to take over the function to pump the blood through our heart. Because the heart is not capable of doing it itself anymore. But when it comes to PEMF, PEMF seems to be the miracle and helps for everything. Right? It's a problem. It's a huge problem when it comes to compliance. Because there is no authority in the world who would ever certify a medical device for all kinds of conditions. Does it make sense to you? Right? So here we have a problem. According to the law, we have a medical device. Because a PEMF device is is considered to be a medical device. On the other hand, the next step is, well, if you have a medical device and you would like to legalize a medical device, the next question the authority tells you, what's the intent of use? You tell me. I'm sure we have 20 people here in the audience. They use PEMF for 20 different conditions. Probably 19 of them have great results. Maybe one not yet, or maybe not to that extent what she or he expected. I just assume, okay? So now we have 19 conditions. Yes. Yeah. You have 19 conditions and you have one device. So, problem. I cannot certify our PEMF device to make it in a correct way to satisfy the authorities, because they always ask for an intent of use. If I put in intent of use, it helps for all the diseases in the world. You know, they sent me to, I don't know where.
Siberia.
Yeah, yes. They sent me to Siberia to shovel the snow, right? So that's a huge problem. And that happens with many, many modalities and devices out of energy medicine. Because when you deal and heal with energy, then you have a totally different approach. You're not seeking to approach the condition. You seek to approach the holistic functionality of an organism in order to help this organism to help itself. This is not in any regulation of authorities. It's not defined there. And this is a huge problem. And this is not solved until today, frankly speaking. You know, I just told to Katie and Paul today, I'm always so honest to everybody, I'm sometimes even too honest. Because sometimes I paid the price already for being too honest. But that's me, because we have nothing to hide. You know, and I'm sharing this with you because maybe some of you know, but I want to really get it to the surface of your thoughts. What's going to happen nowadays? That this is a brilliant technology, PEMF, because it does something what no medication can deliver. It does something what no other medical device like a pacemaker can deliver. Because it creates a holistic effect on the whole body. And this is so powerful that I always say, PEMF doesn't care what you suffer from in terms of a defined disease, in terms of a condition by name. You know, it just tries to increase energy inside your body wherever possible, and miraculously, the body starts dealing with it and changing its functionality towards health. And this is what PEMF does. It was from the beginning, and it is still the same today. And I need you to get that, and I want you to understand this. Despite the fact that everybody's always jumping on you, I have this disease, does it help, does it help? You know? Well, actually, this is what PEMF does. PEMF charges your cells. That sounds so stupid and so dumb and so simple that this guy is totally crazy. How can it charge your cell? Even the term charge your cell, you know, every medical university student would already call the police. This guy is completely nuts. Yeah? By the way, these students, they don't do this because they don't like me or any other person talking about this. It's because they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the background to evaluate whether this information is correct or not. This is the real reason, you know? Ask your cardiologist why there is no heart cancer in the world. Did you ever do that? Why is there no heart cancer in the world? Do we have a cardiologist here? Of course not. Or he or she is hiding. Well, why there? What would be your answer?
Because the heart chakra is one of the highest frequency, right, in our body.
Okay, that was 2 words, heart chakra and frequency. Okay, I leave it like that, I will explain to you.
Because it has the highest density of mitochondria.
It has the highest intensity of mitochondria. That was a good answer, by the way. Well, let's keep it simple. Because the heart is the only organ in our entire system which creates its own energy.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? So it looks like that energy could have a positive effect on our bodies. Because otherwise the heart would not use this concept. Right? Our heart is the most important organ because it needs to pump blood constantly through our systems in order to keep our system alive, keeps it going, and so on and so on. So what you said about the mitochondria, it's true. I would not say that it has the highest amount of mitochondria, but it gets, and now listen, the highest amount of energy out of the mitochondria. And biologically, it is fact that a human or even an animal cell or even a plant cell, any cell in the world, can never ever turn into something malignant when it works properly, when it maintains its functions properly. And in order to do that, you need a certain amount of energy. And when this amount of energy is not there anymore, then the system goes south. Because then you turn into a situation where the cell says, oh, I'm so bored, I don't know what to do, I cannot do my function anymore. I'm going to do something different. I decide what I'm going to do. I go in a different direction, you know? And this is when cancer may occur. Because the cancer who self-employs itself, you know, gets out of the control system and does whatever it wants on its own. And then we can slip into this malignant situation, that we have a growth of cellular level without any control anymore. And an uncontrolled cell growth we know as cancer. So from an energetic perspective, a human being can only develop a disease when the energy inside our organism reaches a critical threshold. As long as this threshold is not there, we're working perfectly. You know? And if we look at a human cell is completely researched when it comes to what's going on biochemically. You know, you can read books, the biochemistry of cells, the biochemistry of cellular metabolism. This is completely researched, you know, tons and tons of studies and books. But what is not so well understood is the energetic situation on a cellular level. And it's quite simple to explain, because inside and outside and around our cells, we have these little fellows here, these little bubbles. We call them ions. I-O-N. And those ions, they float around here. And interestingly, whenever they are exposed to a magnetic impulse, they start to move. And when ions move, they create an electric potential. We know this phenomenon from our smartphone whenever we charge our lithium-ion battery. Because we expose the lithium-ion battery with an electromagnetic field which kicks the butts of these little fellows. They start moving and they create an electric potential. And because they are floating in this nice traced element, lithium, the lithium takes care of that the energy stays inside that environment, the battery. So while the ions moving, they create that electric potential, which gives the current to run your smartphone. After a while, this energy is gone because the smartphone sucks it out of the battery, and then you have to recharge it again. And this is more or less explained in layman terms what's happening with your metabolism energetically. So, did you get that until now? So whenever we are exposed to an electromagnetic field, our organism, those ions, they are pretty happy because they're going to float around, you know, and they create this friction and they create this electric potential, and that literally blows up the cellular structure. And a cell blowed up like this with a membrane potential of, let's say, theoretically 100%, which probably never happens, but theoretically 100%, it cannot do wrong. It cannot go wrong, because this 100% membrane potential cell can perfectly let all the minerals, nutrients, and oxygen into the cellular structure. So everything what we eat, what we drink, what we breathe during our day, you know, and inside these cells, thanks for that comment, are these fellows. Those are the mitochondria. And they are sitting here inside. And they take all these minerals, the nutrients, the oxygen, and they turn it into energy, which is known as ATP. It has nothing to do with the tennis association. It is adenosine triphosphate. That's the stuff, that's the energy which drives us. The more ATP we are able to produce, the more performance we can ask from our organism. The more ATP we produce, the better our immune system is. So ATP is the fuel which runs our organism. Got it? Makes sense? Good. And you can, by the way, you can support to keep your membrane potential high by exercising. Because believe it or not, if you move over the Earth magnetic field, which is, by the way, quite static, it's not pulsating. But when you move over a static field, then you change the static into an impulse. And that's why the people who move a lot, they have a better running metabolism. Because the ions become more happy. You know, and they start moving, they start exchanging, going inside, outside, and they create this membrane potential. And this can be supported by PEMF, because you expose a pulsed electromagnetic field to your entire organism by lying on one of these whole body mats. And what actually happens, all of your 70 trillion cells, they got exposed to that fields. Why all of these? Because electromagnetic fields go through entire materia. They don't care if there is a wall, if there is a jacket, if there is underwear, if there is a pants, if there is a shirt. They just go through. And we can prove this because you can measure that. So this is not woohoo. It's physics. That's why you don't have to undress when you use the whole body mat. I mean, you can, but you don't have to. It's not necessary because it goes through entire materia. So, and now every single of the 70 trillion cells, they are exposed now by this PEMF. So you increase the membrane potential, you make sure that your entire organism increases the production and output of ATP. And this is what PEMF does. And now I could stop my lecture and send you home because now you know everything. Really, I mean it, really. Now this is what PEMF does, not more, not less. So, and now these questions, does it help for arthritis? Well, what is arthritis? Arthritis is a degenerative chronic disease. It's mainly accompanied by pain sensations. So, does it help? Of course it helps. Because, you know, wherever you have cells in your body which are not properly working, in the meaning of where the cell membrane potential is already diminished, and you apply a pulsed electromagnetic field, it will increase the membrane potential, so it will optimize the functionality of this particular cell or cell region or even a wider area, and tries to get the cells back to 100%. Sometimes it's from 50 to 70, sometimes it's from 60 to 80. Who knows? I don't know it. But it doesn't matter, because what we do is we have a holistic effect which is completely not looking into your disease. It just looks into the possibility wherever there needs some repair, that the membrane potential becomes higher, becomes better, with the goal, with the aim to produce more ATP. You know, and that's it. And I can tell you, we know now from energy medicine that a healthy, average human cell, you can measure that, it's measurable, has a membrane potential inside the cell. By the way, a cell is always negatively loaded inside and positively loaded outside. So you always have an iron deficiency inside and the iron overload outside. That's just how it is. That's how just nature made us. And that creates that potential. But the measured membrane potential of a healthy human cell is about minus 75 millivolt. That's a value, that's measurable. The average membrane potential of an elite athlete is about minus 100 millivolt, which makes sense because they move a lot, they exercise a lot. So they already trained their body to increase the basic membrane potential because their demand of ATP is much higher, right? So the average voltage of a cancer cell is equal or minus 35 millivolt. So from an energetic perspective, when a human cell reaches a critical threshold, a diminished membrane potential, which is equal or below minus 35 millivolt, it may go south. Does it make sense? And we not talk about the biochemical processes here. That's just the energetic processes, where still today not so many people talk about. My opinion is energy beats chemistry. And there is no chemistry without energy. Because without having a membrane potential, none of these chemical processes would ever exist. And that's why my opinion is, over the last 30 years, what I learned is that energy is more fundamental and more crucial than chemistry, because energy drives chemistry. Does it make sense? And this is why PEMF is so powerful, because it's a fundamental, holistic, regulative application which, if properly designed and if properly used, can do incredible things to your body without being certified for a specific disease. And now you understand why there is no intent of use. Right? Because the system is not designed for arthritis, for cancer. You know, the system is designed to shift energy inside your body from less to more, which then in return the body gives you more ATP as a result out of it and helps itself to deal with all the problems. So this is what PEMF delivers. And now comes the big if. If the applied properties, what a PEMF field contains of, are delivered properly. Because, and this is what a lot of people don't know, a PEMF field contains of a lot of single things which have to be aligned in a perfect way together in order to deliver efficiency. And this is now what we take a look into, because then you are also able to evaluate, and if you look at the PEMF system, if this system does what it promises or not. You understand what I mean? Okay. The art of misrepresenting something extremely complex and effective in a very trivial way. This is what happens right now with PEMF in public. You know, we have about, I count, 80, 90 different PEMF systems. At least they say it's PEMF. Actually, half of them have already nothing to do with PEMF because they don't even deliver a pulsed electromagnetic field. But because the shortcut PEMF is pretty trendy right now and is pretty good on Google, you know, some companies out of the energy medicine field, they try to somehow get their system into a PEMF thing. Did you ever about Healy? This little device for 4,000 whatsoever? This is just a piece of crap. You know, I looked inside, $8. 8 Canadian. It's €5. That's the material value of a Healy. There's nothing inside. You know, and they created a huge marketing out of this on a global scale. And they even talk about PEMF. You know, this Healy thing has nothing to do with PEMF. It doesn't even expose a pulsed electromagnetic field. You know? And of course your question may be, why are they still on the market? Because nobody from the authorities go after them. That's the reason. That's the one and only reason. You know? And if I go after them, that's going to be a lawsuit for 100 years. Like Budweiser, we just came up with this. There's a little village in Czech Republic, Budweis. And there is a lawsuit, and they have a very good beer. It's called Budweiser. And we know Anheuser-Busch, it's Budweiser. And there's a lawsuit going on since more than 100 years, what most people don't know, which is still not solved. Who has the brand rights of Budweiser between this little village and Anheuser-Busch? And it just came to my mind because Veronica, remember we researched that 2 days ago and we found it out that the lawsuit is still unsolved.
Yeah.
And this is going to happen if I go after them. And I have no time to go after the competition because I have to deal with all the issues and challenges on a daily basis, what we have to do, right? But it's insane what's going on right now in the PEMF market. There are companies out, I found systems, I show you some of them later, they cost between $2,500 to $3,000, even $4,000. I can give you a link where you can buy exactly the same device in China for $150. Exactly the same. Huh? And this is unbelievable. And people, because they lack of education, they believe in this stuff. It's only because of lack of education, nothing else. If you would know which questions you should ask to these manufacturers, in regards to the properties which should be delivered to make a PEMF system a true, that's what I call them now, a true PEMF system, then you would expose them in 5 minutes. Which I did. I did it with 10 of them. And I didn't get one answer. I'm sorry, we cannot disclose this to you because it's company property. You know, if a PEMF company is not capable of disclosing what they emit, don't buy it, because that's a scam. That's as simple as it is. You know, from that 100 systems, I tell you from the bottom of my heart, 80 systems, they deliver dirty electricity to your body. Because they don't even have a signal generator built in. So they take the current from the wall, they hack it in 10 pieces, which, by the way, physically makes 6 hertz. Because here is 60 hertz coming out. If you divide 60 hertz in 10 pieces, you suddenly have a frequency of 6 hertz. If you make it a little bit more precise, you suddenly have a frequency of 7.83 hertz, and then they claim they have the Schumann resonance, coming from a dirty electricity source. So you get Schumann resonance, completely dirty, and it will not do anything good to you. It will hurt you. And because nobody cares, these companies exist. And I want to make you aware of this, because this is now the only way we can educate people and make them aware. And that not only happens in PEMF, in the whole energy medicine world, this happens. You know, there are also the other modalities, bioresonance, where you only heal with frequencies. The problem is you cannot even measure that. The cool thing about PEMF, it's a measurable physical force. You can measure it. You have a Tesla meter, you have an oscilloscope. You know, if you put an oscilloscope in front of an applicator exposing bioresonance, 0, you will see nothing. You better believe in it. You know, which is good, because placebo effect is more powerful than you know, but I would not always rely on it. It always helps to let something to you with a good intention. Right? But it doesn't help if you only rely on this. And there is not even a button which you can turn on. Then you will not have the same results comparing to really have proven scientific properties which are measurable, which are verifiable, and so on and so on. And this is what's going to happening right now. I have a perfect little example for you. Do you know this phrase? Electromagnetic energy is the fundamental energy upon which all living organisms depend. I think we all saw them more or less somewhere on the internet. Very famous. It's a quote from Dr. Werner Heisenberg, a German physicist who worked a lot with electromagnetic energy, and he was a Nobel laureate, you know. About 7 or 8 years ago, I met his son. He's a professor at the Technical University in Munich. And I said, can you please answer me a question? Because even us, can you imagine, on our previous website, we use this quote. Because it fits perfectly to what we want to present to the people, right? Because it's very powerful. So I asked him, I said, did your father ever say this? I said, that's a big joke, he never ever said this. This was a quote which somebody invented out of context during a speech Mr. Heisenberg probably did in front of an audience, where he probably said something which was related to that, but he never said this. He never ever said this. And, you know, rule number 2, the internet doesn't forget anything. Once it's on, it's on. And suddenly, a quote which was never ever quoted by this very famous and very, very honorable person ends up in the internet and gets misused. He never said this. Period. You know? And this is happening all the time right now. A lot of people, a lot of companies, they just copy-paste. You know, to make a new website with AI, AI doesn't know if Heisenberg said this, because AI will not ask his son. But if AI finds this quote on the internet, oh, that sounds good, that fits perfectly to this website, let's take it over. And bang, here you are. You know, that's the downside of AI. Because AI can only rely on existing information, and AI does not determine whether this information is verified or not. So that's a huge problem. And that's why, you know, there's so many second-hand, I call it second-hand quotation. Because you just take it from somewhere without checking whether it's verified, whether it's true, and whether are you even allowed to use it? That's the next thing, right? And so that happens, suddenly you have 50, 60 manufacturers of such PEMF devices, and you read more or less the same content, even if the systems are completely different. Huh? And believe me, that's what's happening. And you need education to determine what's right and what's wrong. So the so-called unverified acceptance of information effects, especially in online communication, is nowadays an established and unquestioned reality. That's happening on a daily basis. Do you agree with me? Does it make sense that this is happening? Right? So here we are. We have the established behavior of sharing and altering information by copy and paste. In addition, with a personal touch, made PEMF what it represents nowadays in societies. Because what people do they not only copy and paste, then they put their personal flavor on top of it. Huh? But our Schumann resonances are much better because of whatsoever. Right? And then we end up with a still controversial, questionable topic among science, because science is not stupid. They look at all this and they say, something is going wrong here. Because there are so many controversy publications, phrases out of PEMF. This cannot be something really verifiable. You know, it's not. You know, and for people like you and me, it's still a complex, confusing, and misrepresented physical phenomenon. And I can tell you that PEMF is nothing else than 100% applied physics. And here's the problem. If physics would be so easy, and if physics would be understood by everybody easily, we would have no problem. You know? Even me, after 30 years, if I would have to explain to you now the law of induction, which is one of the most fundamental laws which we use in PEMF, I'm not able to explain it to you properly. I'm very honest. Because it's so complex, and I'm not sure if you remember physics, when we went out of the classroom with all these question marks around us, and you know, head down said, I will never learn this, I will never understand this. This makes it so dangerous, because on one hand, PEMF is 100% science. On the other hand, it is quite not understood by people like you and me, because it's so complex. And because of that fact, it is very easy to deceive people and to mislead them with incoherent information. Just put the marketing pitch out with facts. People don't understand it anyway. You know, how can you prove if the Schumann resonance is coming out of that unit or not? Right? Nobody can prove that. Well, when you manufacture a PEMF device, and you have to certify it, you know, as a medical device, then you have to prove it, because otherwise we won't get a certificate. Because then you do have all the measurings, the tests and everything. You know, all these clinical evaluation. We have a clinical evaluation about the IMRS prime of about 210 pages. Cost me a fortune. Without that, nobody reads that. But you have to have it. You know? And you have to have it in a way that's nothing wrong what's inside. Because at a certain time, somebody will read it. You know? And if you didn't do it properly, they say, oh, this is wrong. You get your certificate. You get your license off, you know? And that's what I'm talking about. You have to understand that. You know? And you are allowed to ask questions. If a PEMF manufacturer comes to you and wants to sell a system to you, ask questions. And when we're done here today, you know exactly what questions to ask. And if they cannot answer these questions, thank you for flying Coconut Airlines. Okay? So, my thought was, if we create and perform an objective and verifiable comparison of physical, mechanical, and electronic properties which define a PEMF device, then we have it. Huh? Also, value price. Very important. There are PEMF systems on the market. They cost 5,000, they are worth 5. There are systems out, they cost 2,000, they are worth 300. There are systems out, they cost 60,000, high-intensity PEMF devices, they cost 500. Just from the material what they use and from the ingredients. You know, mostly building garages. You know, highly, highly dangerous because they expose such a high field intensity and so on and so on. So that's the way to do it. So what do we have to look at? That's the first thing. Waveform. Now let's go into physics. I'm going to stress you a little bit today, sorry. But it's time now to do that. So, those are waveforms which are known and described in physics. So, they are not invented or patented by companies. They are just there, you know, because they are used and, like I said, they are researched and they are documented in general physics. You learn about them in school. It's because that's what they are, and that's how they used. They used sine waves, for example, for delivering the current, and so on and so on. They use, for example, sawtooth waveforms in music, because sawtooth waveforms create tremendous amount of harmonics. So this waveform is widely used in music, for symphonies, for orchestras, for designing rooms. They make measurings where they get most of the sawtooth vibrations out, because the sawtooth not only produces even but also uneven harmonics, which makes it the waveform with the most exposed frequencies at a time, comparing to a sine wave, which can only deliver one frequency at a time. And then you have the square wave, which is a engineered sine wave. We just make the flanks a little bit, the rise is a little bit sharper and the falls, and the peaks a little bit longer, you know. And by the way, in order to create such a waveform, which we also have to do when we expose a PEMF field, you have to have a built-in signal generator or pulse generator. If you don't have this built in a PEMF system, the PEMF system automatically